Hello, and thank you for joining us for training on the Archibus work order system at York College. Today, we are lucky to have with us Chris Keller, one of the software engineers of Archibus for CUNY. It is my pleasure to introduce Chris Keller.
Now
Now you should be able to share. Okay, so I want to make that bigger.
I'll make this a little. I'll zoom in on the document a bit. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. That works.
Okay. So this is the basic requester manual, and so this is what I guess you sent them, right?
Yes.
I was just going to walk through this, and just their menu is this. They get to create and view, and that's it. Just kind of walk through the screen, and these are each of the sections of the screen. And it's really kind of, there's not a lot here.
Okay.
I mean, it'll take a few minutes, and for people that have worked in the old system, this will look better and easier. And for people that have never seen it before, it won't be that bad.
Okay.
So I can hold up. So we've done that training a few times. So it'll start off with this, which is the login screen, right? So you click the link. If they click the link, then it'll take them here, and they fill in their CUNY First credentials and log in, and they're going to come to this. They won't have this applications button, but they'll have these two picks, and that's all they can do. So you click on Create Work Request, and you get this. Now, the manual itself just chunks each one of these little panels into a separate section of the manual.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just have this on the screen, and I'll just talk through each of these pieces.
All right, let's go through it real quick.
Okay, so I'm going to give it to you. So I'm going to change. It'll default to them, but then they can type in somebody. When they do, it'll put in their phone number, and if you click this button here, it'll fill in their location. So that just pulls it right out of wherever they're sitting.
If the location of the problem is at that particular point.
If the person you're doing it for, right? So they typically are putting in a request for somebody else.
Yes.
So they'll almost always go up here and pick that person out of this list. And if they click on that button, it'll automatically put in their location. So if they're complaining about something that's in their location.
Okay, for example, Chris, so if my boss asked me to request something, I would put his name up in the requested by box?
Correct.
Okay, good.
So you're known as the creator. The person you're putting it in for is who it's requested by. That could also basically be requested for, but essentially that's how they've labeled it. So this is the person that the request is for. So if you're doing it for yourself, you're the only person, you just leave it by default and it goes right. Now, if they're calling in for something, but it's not in that location, let's suppose it's not in their space, but maybe it's a bathroom on their floor, then they can delete the room and they can select the draw, or they can just leave the room. And it'll pull up that floor plan. And then they can say, oh, well, it's actually...
How did you zoom in? Because I couldn't zoom in last time.
Mouse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, your scroll wheel zooms in and out, and then you can just click on a spot, drag to pan around. And then if you want to pick, say it's in this bathroom right here, you can pick that bathroom and it fills it in. So you can either pick out the floor plan, select it from a list. So if there was nothing here, you would get all the rooms on that floor. Or you can pick it off the drawing. So you pick the building and pick the floor, and then you can select the drawing. You can further identify this as to where the location is, and then you can say that it's a toilet issue. So I'm going to put in the word test, just because
Of course.
it's a way of identifying this. Is not a real problem. But basically, they can then put in a description, and down here it shows them what the response is, and they can click some. If they take a photograph or something, they've got that photograph sitting on their workstation, they can add a document and include that with it.
Oh, that's very nice.
So you can say add documents, you can upload by clicking the arrow, and you choose your file.
And again, you won't be able to do this with your phone because you need to be logged on to your desktop or remote logged in.
Yeah, so at this point, phone access for this is not a good idea. You do it on a tablet just because it's big enough that you can be a desktop. So a lot of the craftspeople and supervisors have iPads or something. But you're looking, it's this identical screen. So they can add a document if they want, and then they submit. And when they submit, it will send out an email. It tells you what the ID is. It's ID 67. You should get an email because you're in the requested box. It you should have an email like pretty shortly that tells you that this work order was created.
Okay, so the email goes to the whoever is in the requested box or
It
requested
also
box.
goes to the creator.
And the creator. Okay.
Right. So now, as it goes through the process and all the stages, both the requested by and the creator will get emails.
Okay.
Telling them, yes, this has now been moved to the next stage. So it's now sitting and labeled as approved. And the next one is it gets reviewed by the staff, and then they schedule it, assign it to somebody, and they start working on it, and it goes to issue. So they'll get an email saying it was issued. So they'll first get one saying it was created, and then they get one that says it's been issued. And then they'll get one that says it's been completed. Or if somebody decides to not cancel it or they stop it, they'll get an email telling them that.
So it's a workflow system.
Yeah, and that's what's down at the bottom here is a work. So the request will be dispatched to the admin, is what it says at the bottom. So that means it's been sent off to somebody to get it scheduled and assigned to somebody so they can do the work.
Now, what about when the work is done? Will they get an email?
Yeah, so they get an email when the status changes, when it's created, when it gets changed to issued, and when it gets completed.
So 3 different times.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember if they also get emails when it gets put on hold. They may or may not. I can't remember. We can look that up.
Okay.
But they'll get emails telling them the status of it as it progresses.
Now, can they look in their catch, I guess it's called? I'm not sure. And
So view work requests.
Work request and see that it's completed?
And it should show up right here.
Now, if this was completed, would it say completed?
Yeah, so the status would be right here.
Okay.
And you should have gotten an email, a second email. So now it says it's in progress. So what they can do is this list will be long, right? So typically a department, the department admin or whatever they're called, department requester, would be entering, depending on the size of the department they're responsible for, could be entering 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 work orders.
Sure.
And it could take weeks and months before they actually get completed. So this list could be quite long.
Mm-hmm.
And they can at any point take a look at the list. I don't know what happens if we select it. Okay, so it goes into all the detail. And they really can't edit anything except maybe their phone number. Everything else is there. But down here, the history shows them what the status is. So all they can do is sort of look at the details. And here's my one archived. So once it gets closed, it goes into the archive. So if somebody calls up and says, somebody didn't do this work order, and I look through the list and I can't find him, they go to the archive and they'll be able to find him here.
Oh, very good.
So these are the ones that are closed. So these are archived and sitting in history.
How far back do they go? Or can they go?
This will be indefinite, starting whenever you guys go live.
I think that'll be April 16th, 2021.
So starting at that point, it'll just be filling that up full of stuff until at some point it gets so full that somebody decides to delete them permanently or something. But typically it'll be multiple years worth of stuff.
Is that all they have to know? Pretty
That's
much?
it. We're done.
That's simple. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we go over logging on to Archibus?
So let me do this and let me do that. All right. So initially, they should just have a menu, right? They should have their web page, and there should be a spot on your web page that says create a work request or submit a work request or something. I don't know I've never seen your web page. I have no idea what it looks like. I don't even know if I can get to it.
York.cuny.edu.
It's york.cuny.edu.
That would be it. So it would be somewhere on here. Work order.
And it may be, I'm guessing if it's going to be one of these guys, I'm guessing that's it, but I don't know. The CMS may be something else.
And that's an IT issue that we have to discuss with.
I have zero control over this.
Hopefully they'll just put it in, it'll say work order, so we can request a work order.
Yeah, you guys have to decide what this is. I don't know where it is. There should be an existing one that you can pick and get to the old Archibus through, but I don't know where that is.
It's hard for me to see. I think it might be...
Yeah, you'd have to navigate because I haven't logged in. So if it doesn't, then what they have to do is they have to log into this. So
York/archibus.cuny.edu.
So it's york-archibus.cuny.edu. It's the same URL that I gave you to get to IT.
Yes, I did that.
So that same URL they can use right now, and that's what I use. They can do it, and it'll take them in.
And then I'll take them right to this spot if they're on their desktop or remotely logged in.
the first time they do it, let me see if I can get back to it.
Okay.
I have to clear it in order for it to take us back to square one. So when they first go into it, it should take them to CUNY first.
I remember.
So it'll take them to the CUNY first login, which is what I had originally. It's
Okay.
remembering that I just logged in. It's sort of keeping that cached. So the first time you go into it, it'll pull up the CUNY first, then log in with CUNY first, and then they're in. It takes them to here.
Got it. With the york-archibus.cuny.edu.
Right.
Okay.
So using URL, you'll end up, they'll get to the CUNY first, and then they'll get in. Actually, I'm going to clear my cache so I show you. When they first go into it, it should take them there.
So they have to be remotely logged in from this point.
Yep. When they type in that URL, they have to be in, that URL has to be typed in a browser that is in CUNY network. You can't type in that URL from your home computer that if you're logged into your home computer. If you're VPN'd in, you switch over to the VPN and you're remoted in, and that desktop that you're working in is actually the one that's physically on your site.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So that's the confusing part for people who aren't used to VPN and remoting in, is knowing which machine you're on.
Sure.
And it's easy to get confused. So I don't know, you probably can't see, but at the bottom I have two icon trays. And oh yeah, you can see it. So the bottom one is my home computer, and the top one is my CUNY computer.
Ah, okay.
So if I went down here and I launched it, used this one, this Zoom, this Chrome to launch, it wouldn't let me in because I'm not on the network on my home computer. It's deceptive to people who don't understand how VPN and remoting works. It's most people, believe me. I can't remember which machine I'm on either because things like this I have to scroll to get to know which one it is. So, for instance, I have to zoom from my home computer because if I zoom on my remote CUNY one, everything has gone through that computer. It's not on my computer. I can't control the video or the sound. So I have to do it from this one. So I have to launch all the Zoom off my home computer and then share the screen on my CUNY. So anyway, so it's a challenge. It's always a challenge.
It's been a challenge.
So that's typically the problem, right? If they don't get to this screen here, if they don't see the CUNY login, then they're not VPN'd and remoting and using the remote desktop to launch it.
Got it.
Right. So if they get to this and they type this in and they click login, the next screen is Archibus. If the next screen they get is something else, they get an error. If they get to the CUNY login and then it goes to an error, that means that the Archibus is not working. Now that means they don't have a user ID or the system is down or the IT connection is bad or something, right? And that would then be an IT/me problem.
Okay.
But if you can get into it and it works fine for you, and they can't, then it's probably not the system. Now, it could be their credentials. It could be that they don't have a user in Archibus. But if they've been in before, then they do, and nothing is likely changed. So almost always that turns into a VPN issue.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because I remember I wasn't VPN'd in or I didn't have my VPN on, and I tried it from home, and it didn't work. It gave me the error message a few times.
So you'll get this error that says you don't have access or something.
And I was able to get here from my work computer when I was in.
So and also that you cannot get to this through CUNY first. That's the other confusing part. You use CUNY first as your authentication to get in. It's called SSO, single sign-on. And what that means is, the Archibus URL directs you first to CUNY first login and then back to Archibus. You can't go into CUNY first and then get into Archibus from there. So it doesn't work to go through CUNY first. You have to go use the Archibus URL, and it will redirect you to CUNY first login and redirect you back to Archibus once you're authenticated with CUNY first.
Ah, got it. Yes.
So that's technically what it's doing.
I think I did that once.
So if you try to go into CUNY first, then they might remember, oh yeah, my CUNY first login, so I'll just go into CUNY first. And then they won't be able to find a pick anywhere that says launch Archibus.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Walk around and they'll call you up and say, how come I can't find this?
Yes.
So those are all the common errors
Okay.
that end users run into when they're trying to get into them. Because if you say, oh, well, did you get to the CUNY first login? They're going to say, yeah. Did you use the Archibus URL to get to CUNY first? Huh? So that means no. So that's basically it. And once they're there, they've only got 2 picks, and they can either look for something that's already in existence, which is this one.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, you navigate back by selecting the tab at the top. And it takes you back to the menu.
Okay.
And you can create a work request. That's it.
That's it.
That's the sum total of all they can do.
Pretty simple. Well, complicated to get in a little bit, but simple when you're there.
Basically, they get to the URL and then they get into here. It is fairly straightforward, and the manual walks them through every single step, right? So one of the things that I do when I'm supporting users like this, when they should be reading the manual or the help, is I walk them through the manual. I open up the manual and I walk them through the manual.
Mm-hmm.
I tell them that they have it. If they say they can't find it or they don't know where it is, I resend it to them. And so it's a little confusing if you're only looking at the manual and not looking at the software.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'll show you what that is. So up here, if you want to find somebody, you click on these little dots, and it pulls up this list. If you clear the name by hitting the black X, you then get this thing across the top. So this is what's called like a mini filter console, and this is how you find people. So if you know their name, right? So I'll find you again. So I go to M, and there's 128 people that start with M. And then I go to MA, this is last name, and then I go to MAT.
5. Okay.
And then I can go to MATT.
2.
So, and if you start down a rabbit hole and go, wait a minute, I was going by their first name, not their last name, then you can go back to the top and start over. You can also, if you know the name, right, and you know how to spell it. So there's 2 things. One, you got to know the name. The second is you got to know how to spell it. You can start typing and hit return, and it'll do a filter on the first set of letters that you type.
Okay, that's good.
Right? And it's by last name, comma first. So if they're used to knowing everybody's first name and not their last name, then this will be a challenge. I don't think it works. Maybe it does. Yeah, it does. Okay, so you can type the first name, but it's a little harder you get more choices because it's finding anywhere in the entire name string these 3 letters together.
Okay.
So, first name, last name. So it's pulling up, I can't pronounce that, but Jaqui, Dan's, right? So they can just start typing the name. And hit return, and it gets you the restriction.
Got it.
Black X does a clear, it starts you over. And so this is a way of filtering down. Most people know who they're doing this for because somebody called them up and complained.
Sure.
And so they're gonna type in a name and do that and get to the list. Must be James. So whatever name that. Now it's unlikely they're going to know the phone number or the department code. They won't know their department code, but they might know the department name. But I don't know that any of that is very useful. know they're in the English department but they can't remember their names, you could do that.
English. Ah.
So that's everybody in the English department.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also concatenate it. So if you were to, you know their last name starts with C and they're in the English department, you could do that.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, so there's some, you can do combinations and do some things to drill in. So you should be able to find anybody who's in the system. And this should be everybody at York, all employees.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a new person, I might not have them yet. I might not have put them in. But
this is easy. This is simple. So yeah, this will be good. So they'll learn how to do this, and they'll figure out what they need to do to submit a work order to this new system.
Yeah, my guess is since they're kind of responsible as some sort of departmental admin, they have some ability to do this and some incentive to get it done.
Of course.
Since at some point somebody important is going to come and say, I need something done, and if they can't get it in here, it's not going to happen. They might call somebody in building and grounds and say, I need this work order.
Yeah, so that's fine. We could do that. That's easy enough as long as we have this in place and everyone knows how to submit a work order and that needs to submit a work order.
So ideally, you would want everybody to put in and submit their own requests, and so they should be able to do that. And ideally, that's what that'll make the whole system more efficient. And then on the maintenance side, the supervisors and the team, ideally, we want to get to where the craftspeople are updating the data themselves.
Got it.
That's a whole different, that may be harder than getting this done. The difficult part seems to be the VPN and the connection as your remote, because that's by definition difficult.
Yes.
And so that's usually the challenge.
Okay, good.
All right, and I'll...
All right, sounds good, Chris. Thanks so much for meeting with me.